5. Huge mistakes people make in old age that destroy their happiness and health. My dear friend, let me begin by telling you something I've learned after walking this earth for many long years. Age itself is not the enemy. Wrinkles, gray hair, slower steps, these are not what rob us of joy. What destroys people in old age are the silent choices, the habits we cling to, and the mistakes we carry without noticing. They creep in like shadows, and before we realize it, they drain our health, steal our happiness, and make our later years feel like a burden instead of a blessing. I have seen it happen with my own eyes. I've watched strong men who once carried their families on their backs weaken not because of time, but because they stopped caring for their bodies. I've seen women with hearts full of light allow loneliness to cover them like a heavy blanket until they forgot how to laugh. I've sat with neighbors who once told stories of joy but could only speak of regrets and bitterness as they grew older. And the saddest part is this: none of it was inevitable. It could have been different. Growing old can be a beautiful chapter of life. It can be a time of freedom, wisdom, love, and deep gratitude. It can be the season when you finally see clearly what matters most and live without the rush of youth or the endless demands of work. But it can also be a time of sorrow if you are not careful. Too many people enter old age without preparation of the heart and mind, and they fall into traps that leave them unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled. I do not want that for you. I want your later years to be filled with laughter, with strong steps, with peace when you close your eyes at night, and with love that warms your spirit every morning you wake. That is why I am speaking to you now, not as a teacher, not as a doctor, but as someone who has lived long enough to see the difference between those who thrive in old age and those who suffer. If you truly want happiness and health in your later years, you must understand this truth. Mistakes are not just small errors of judgment. In old age, they become heavy burdens. They weigh on the body, they poison the mind, and they darken the spirit. Avoiding these mistakes is not simply about adding years to your life, it is about adding life to your years. And I promise you, there are 5 great mistakes I have seen again and again that destroy people when they grow older. They are so common that you may not even notice them in your own life until it is too late. But once you see them clearly, you can change course. And when you do, you will discover that growing old is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. So listen to me as if your very days depend on it, because in many ways they do. Take my hand as we walk through these truths together. Let me show you the 5 huge mistakes that people make in old age. Mistakes that rob them of their happiness, their health, and their peace of mind. And let me also show you how to avoid them so that the final chapters of your life can be the most beautiful, the most meaningful, and the most joyful chapters of all. Part 1. Mistake 1. Abandoning movement and physical health. Let me tell you something that most people don't realize until it's far too late. The body does not stop working because of age. It stops working because we stop using it. Muscles don't vanish overnight. Bones don't suddenly become brittle in a single season. Hearts don't grow weak just because of birthdays. What really happens is this: we abandon movement, we give up the daily habits that once kept us alive and strong, and we slowly hand our independence away without even noticing. I remember an old neighbor of mine, a man named Min. When he retired, he said, "Finally I can rest." And rest he did. He gave up his morning walks, gave up gardening, gave up even the simple joy of climbing the stairs to visit his rooftop plants. At first it seemed harmless. He enjoyed his tea in peace, sat in his chair for hours, and watched television to pass the time. But within a year, the strong man I knew had a bent back, swollen knees, and shortness of breath even when walking to the corner shop. He thought age had caught up to him. But I knew the truth. It wasn't age. It was the choice to stop moving. Our bodies are like rivers. When water flows, it stays clear, alive, full of energy. But when it stops, it becomes stagnant, filled with decay. The same happens to us. Movement is life. When we stop stretching, stop walking, stop challenging our balance, our bodies weaken. And once the body weakens, so does the spirit. It's not just health that is lost. It's independence, dignity, and joy. I've seen too many people surrender their golden years because of this mistake. They say, "I'm too old to exercise," not realizing that it is precisely at that moment when movement matters most. Even a few steps in the garden, even gentle stretching in the morning, even dancing slowly to an old song can breathe life into tired bones and renew the heart. If you truly want happiness in your later years, guard your body as the sacred vessel it is. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. You need only to keep moving, to treat your body with the respect it deserves, to understand that the ability to walk, to reach, to bend, to climb, that is freedom itself. Without it, even the simplest joys become out of reach. Do not abandon your body, my friend. For when you care for it, it will carry you faithfully through the final chapters of life with dignity and strength. Part 2. Mistake 2. Letting loneliness and silence take over. Now let us turn to another mistake, one just as dangerous as abandoning the body: abandoning people. Loneliness is one of the cruelest diseases of old age, and yet it is one that so many allow to grow silently in their lives. I will never forget a woman I once knew named Hoa. She had children who lived far away, busy with their own families. She told herself she didn't want to be a burden, so she stayed home, waiting for phone calls that rarely came. Day by day, her voice grew quieter, her laughter less frequent. She stopped attending the community gatherings she once loved, stopped visiting neighbors, stopped reaching out to old friends. And though her heart still longed for connection, her silence built a wall around her. Loneliness wrapped itself around her like a cold blanket, and in time, it became the weight that pulled her down. Loneliness is not just about being alone. It is about feeling unseen, unheard, and forgotten. And when we accept that silence, when we give up on human connection, it eats away at both health and happiness. Science itself has shown that loneliness weakens the immune system, raises blood pressure, and even shortens life expectancy. But beyond the science, I tell you this as truth. A heart without companionship loses its strength to keep beating with joy. People in old age sometimes retreat into silence because they feel ashamed of needing others. But let me tell you, needing people is not weakness. It is humanity. We were not made to live in isolation. We were made to share stories, to laugh together, to sing, to pray, to argue, to sit side by side and watch the sun fall behind the mountains. Do not let loneliness steal your golden years. Seek people. Invite a neighbor for tea. Call your old friends. Visit the gatherings at the temple, the church, or the community hall. Speak to the children playing in the street. Share your wisdom with the young, and in return, receive their joy and energy. Life was never meant to be lived in silence. I tell you this as one who has seen the difference. Those who surround themselves with love and laughter age like fine wine, full of spirit and beauty. Those who let loneliness creep in age like stone, worn down by cold winds and rain. Choose love, my friend. Choose companionship. For without it, no health, no wealth, no wisdom can save you from despair. Part 3. Mistake 3. Living in the past or regret. There is a heavy chain that many carry into their later years, and it is made not of iron, but of memory. Some people live as though the past were still happening, replaying moments of pain, regret, or even lost glory, until the present becomes invisible to them. I once knew an old man named Bao, who in his youth had been a successful businessman. He loved telling stories about his triumphs, his wealth, and his travels. At first, it was charming to listen. But as the years went by, those stories were all he spoke of. He lived only in back then. And as he did, he missed the life that was still unfolding before him, the laughter of his grandchildren, the changing seasons, the quiet beauty of the present moment. He didn't see it because his eyes were fixed backward. His life became a museum of memories. But museums, my friend, are places you visit, not where you live. And then, on the other side, I have seen people who chain themselves not to glory, but to regret. They think of the wrongs they committed, the apologies they never made, the opportunities they wasted. They whisper to themselves, "If only I had done this, if only I hadn't done that." And those two small words, "if only," become their prison. Instead of living the days they still have, they keep reliving the ones that are gone forever. But here is a truth I want you to carry close to your heart. The past is a book already written. You can read it, you can learn from it, you can even share its lessons, but you cannot rewrite it. What you can shape is the page you are living today and the pages yet to come. When we grow old, we must learn the art of release. Release the glory days. Release the regrets. Release the anger and shame that tie us to yesterday. There is beauty in the present that only the old can fully appreciate. The way morning sunlight feels on your skin. The way a child's laughter rings like music. The way a simple meal tastes when you share it with love. These are not small things. They are treasures. And if your eyes are fixed on yesterday, you will not see them. Do not let your later years be spent chasing ghosts. Instead, live here, live now. For the present is the only place where joy and peace can truly be found. Part 4. Mistake 4. Neglecting mental and emotional growth. Another mistake, subtle but devastating, is when people stop growing once they reach a certain age. They stop reading, stop learning, stop laughing, stop exploring new ideas. They believe old age is only about resting, when in truth, the mind and heart need nourishment just as much as the body. I remember visiting my aunt when she was in her 80s. Though her hair was silver and her hands were wrinkled, she was always surrounded by books. She would read history, poetry, even new scientific discoveries. She learned to use the computer just to send emails to her grandchildren. And every time I saw her, her eyes sparkled with curiosity, as though she was still a student of life. She grew old, yes, but she grew alive. Compare this to another man I knew, who gave up all interest in learning once he retired. He sat in front of the television every day, watching the same programs over and over. His world shrank smaller and smaller until there was no room left for joy. His conversations grew dull, his spirit faded, and soon his body followed. His decline was not from age, but from neglect, neglect of the mind, neglect of the heart. Do not let your spirit shrink with time. Old age should not be the end of curiosity. It should be its flowering. You have lived long enough to know that wisdom is endless, that life still has mysteries worth discovering. Learn new skills, pick up a musical instrument, study history, write your memories, paint, sing, travel, even if only in books. Feed your mind, and your soul will stay young. And don't forget the emotional side. Many people in their later years stop laughing, stop playing, stop allowing themselves the childlike joy of silliness. They think it is beneath their dignity. But I tell you, dignity without joy is just a mask. Laugh with your grandchildren. Share jokes with your neighbors. Dance when you hear music. Cry when your heart needs to release. To grow emotionally is to stay alive inside. The moment you stop growing, you start dying, no matter your age. So keep your heart wide open. Keep your mind hungry. Let curiosity and laughter be your companions. This, my friend, is how you keep the soul young, even as the body ages. Part 5. Mistake 5. Clinging to bitterness instead of forgiveness. There is a poison more deadly than any disease, and it is not carried in the blood, but in the heart. That poison is bitterness. I have seen it consume lives in silence, turning once kind people into shadows of themselves. And in old age, when memories grow stronger and losses accumulate, bitterness finds its way in if we do not guard against it. I once knew an old woman, Lan, who carried anger against her brother for 40 years. They had quarreled over money, and neither of them ever reached out to heal the wound. When she spoke of him, her voice would tremble with resentment, even though he had long since passed away. Her bitterness kept her from peace, from sleep, from truly enjoying the family who still sat at her table. She thought she was holding on to justice, but what she was really holding was a burning coal that scorched only her own hands. Bitterness is a thief. It steals our health, raising our blood pressure, tensing our muscles, even damaging our hearts. It steals our joy because every good memory is overshadowed by resentment. It steals our relationships because no one feels safe around a soul that cannot forgive. And worst of all, it steals our peace at the end of life, when the soul most longs for rest. My friend, forgiveness is not about saying what happened was right. It is not about pretending pain never existed. Forgiveness is about setting yourself free. It is the key that unlocks the cage of anger, releasing your heart into peace. I tell you this not as someone who found forgiveness easy, but as someone who has tasted both bitterness and release. I too once carried anger for years. It made me sick. It made me old before my time. But when I finally let it go, when I whispered forgiveness, not for their sake but for mine, I felt light again. I felt as though the years I had lost were suddenly returned to me in peace. Do not let bitterness poison your later years. Do not allow old grudges to follow you into the sunset of your life. Let them go. Forgive. Even if the other person never apologizes, even if the wound runs deep, choose freedom. Choose peace. Because the weight of bitterness is too heavy to carry in old age. And once you release it, you will walk lighter, breathe deeper, and smile more sincerely than you have in years. Conclusion. My dear friend, now we have walked together through the 5 huge mistakes that so often destroy happiness and health in old age. I have not shared these lessons from books or theories, but from life itself, from the faces I have seen, the hearts I have listened to, and the years I have lived. We began with the truth that abandoning movement weakens the body, not because age demands it, but because we surrender too soon. We saw how loneliness creeps in when we retreat into silence, stealing joy more effectively than any illness. We learned that living in the past, whether in glory or regret, blinds us to the present gift of life. We discovered that neglecting the mind and heart leads to decline, while curiosity and laughter keep the spirit young. And finally, we faced the most dangerous poison of all, bitterness, and the freedom that forgiveness brings. These are not small matters. They are the difference between a life that fades away quietly and a life that shines even in its final chapters. You and I, we may not control the years we are given, but we can choose how to live them. We can choose movement over stillness, companionship over loneliness, the present over regret, growth over stagnation, forgiveness over bitterness. Old age is not a curse. It is not the end. It is a season, one with its own beauty, its own wisdom, its own gifts. It is the time when you can look back with gratitude, live the present with joy, and prepare for the future with peace. So take these words into your heart. Examine your days. Ask yourself honestly, am I making these mistakes? And if you are, do not despair. For as long as you still breathe, it is not too late to change. A single step, a single conversation, a single act of forgiveness can transform the rest of your journey. I have lived long enough to know this truth. Happiness and health in old age are not given by chance, they are built by choice. Choose wisely, my friend. Choose love, movement, laughter, forgiveness, and presence. If you do, your later years will not be years of decline, but years of radiance. And when your time finally comes, you will not leave this world heavy with regret. You will leave it with peace, with dignity, and with a smile that says, I have lived well,